Hello, everybody, and welcome to Chess Diagnostic. Today, I'm going to be making a video about the Halloween Gambit in the spirit of Halloween, and we're going to be looking at a game that was played between basically a national master, a FIDE master, a 2200 player as white, versus a Grandmaster, and it's very interesting how black loses his way. Now, of course, the Halloween Gambit you could say is not exactly sound. But it is a very good education and peace activity, so let's just get into it. It starts with e4, e5, knight to f3, and then you could go to 4 knights. And so after this, you see the knight take, which is a rather surprising move. It takes on e5, and now the knight takes. So the interesting thing about this is that it really shows how just using your pawns as battering rams and reducing your opponent's pieces activity with your pawns can compensate for giving away an entire piece. Now, of course, he does get a pawn back for that, but the main idea is you play d4, and now black has two main ideas here. He can either go, let me find this again. Now, he can either go back to g6, or he can go back to c6. Now, I'm not sure why these arrows aren't coming up. Maybe I need to have the analysis on. But I'll just tell you basically. So the knight could go to g6, and if he goes to the king side. Now, in this game, we see knight to c6. Now, the idea of white is to use his pawns as a battering ram. And what you want to do is play incredibly actively. You don't want to just develop your pieces now. So if you want to try to guess what the move would be. So the idea is, for example, if he went to g6, you would play e5, chasing the f6 knight away. And if he goes to c6, you want to play d5. Now the knight can come back, and then you play f4. All right, so you can see that white is already just grabbing so much space. e5, and now the knight has to go back. Now look at this kind of sad situation for black. As you can see, the analysis is minus 1.5. So technically, you could say that that white is losing, but of course, practically, it's not so simple. All right, so this is the key move here is d6, cutting off basically the coordination and development opportunities of that bishop, and really just hampering both the queen side as well as the king side. Now, these two pieces, the c8 bishop as well as the rook on a8, even the queen too is going to have to try to get out first to get out of the way of the king. All right, so he brings there, and then white's already threatening a fork. The king has to move over. Queen comes out. There's a lot of moves that white could do. Basically, he just develops, threatens the queen, trades, and now white is already quite active with the queenside castling. All right, so if you want to evaluate this position, you could just look at the activity of black versus white. Now, white has a somewhat active knight that it's going to get more active, occupying that d6 square, which is an essential idea in the Halloween Gambit. And it really shows how just placing your pawns or pieces on the 6th rank while your opponent's trying to develop can really hamper the entire flow of your opponent's development. All right, so black is really trying to get out. And after knight to d6, he plays a mistake by trying to get his king out. Now, the computer actually suggested rook to e8, which looks a bit weird because you're giving away some material, but it makes perfect sense in the context of evaluating the entire position with piece activity. So if you look at black, he doesn't have the c8 bishop or both of his rooks. They're not developed, but also the knights and the queen are, you could say they're developed, but they're really not because they're on the edge. The knight on g6 has nowhere to go. He can't go to e5, and the queen is really doing nothing. So it's a really dire situation when you can't develop, even if you're up material. All right, so let's go here. Now he doesn't want to try to go like rook to d5 because then you get the check here on e3. All right, so he takes, and then simply white just starts doubling the rooks because it looks like black can try to develop, but he's basically 1 or 2 moves too late. So now he's getting that bishop out. It looks like he can play bishop to c6. On the next move, if he had one move that he could get ahead, then he might be able to equalize. But as you can see, the evaluation is 0 at this point, whereas before it was minus 3.4. But these positions are much more complicated to play as a human than a computer, where they'll just do a lot of calculation. It's much harder to play psychologically when you're down. All right, so here we go. The rook's double. Now he's hitting the queen, basically trying to get the queen off that fifth rank. So now he can occupy it, threaten that pawn, takes a check. And now he basically just does a clearance and takes a pawn as well, threatening rook to c4. And black really doesn't have any good moves. The bishop checks. And because the bishop on c6 is pinned, he can just take it, and it's basically a mate in 2. You can calculate that out. Basically, the king goes over. Oh, let me see if I can figure this out here. All right, the king goes over, check, and then you actually just take the queen, and you get checkmate. So a doubly brutal Halloween Gambit. Now, it's fascinating to me that this game was played between 300 or 400 points lower opponent, and he managed to beat his Grandmaster opponent with the Halloween Gambit. Now, it just shows that it's not necessarily understanding an opening or anything. It's really hard to play psychologically when you're down in activity, and that's why I talk about it so much on this channel, because you can trade and take a bunch of pieces, but if you're allowing yourself to be down in activity and not, basically you're giving up the game to your opponent for some material, and yeah, the computer might say, oh, you're up, 4 points, but if you're having to calculate and waste all this time to figure it out, then your opponent has a much easier practical position, I would say. All right, so I want to find one more game here. Let me see if I can pull this up. And this was a game, actually, that I played. Let's see, stop screen. All right, share screen. All right, this was actually a game that I played, let's see, it looks like 2017. Oh, sorry, my leg is going numb here, sitting on the floor. Okay, so this game was actually played on, let's see, I was about 2010, so this is 2 years ago. This is a Halloween Gambit 3-0 tournament, which it's kind of cool. So Lichess has it where you can look up your openings, and I looked up the Halloween Gambit games I played. So as white, I did go for that thing. He went to g6. That's why I chose this game to show. I could have gone something like f4 and been ultra aggressive, but I did just play bishop to c4, and he's playing it a little slow. He probably should have brought the bishop out, because now that knight blocks his bishop's development, and I'm threatening mate, and then he just makes a tactical blunder. I take, I win a piece back, and as you can see, he's already in dire straits. Check. Now I'm castled. All right, let's look at the evaluation. Yeah, so it's +6 already. 4. All right, he thinks he can trade, but actually I got a fork, and then he resigned. So that was an 1800 blitz player, and as you can see, it's basically stemming from the fact that he blocked all of his pieces. And let's see, so it actually is minus 2.3. All right, so he should have played d5 right away. And I could have taken it, but that would have actually helped him keep his advantage. But again, sacrificing material back is actually a great thing to do. When your opponent gives a gambit and you take the material, just always think about how you can give material back to gain even more activity. And, maybe you might have to give a pawn or two, but maybe you got a piece. So always, keep that in your mind. All right, so hopefully this was somewhat instructional. I'm trying to, get at least some presentation value in these streams, and I think I'll get my mojo back. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the future. Bye-bye. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm looking at this. Yes, I am back, and I'll try to do another live stream tomorrow. And eventually, I want to get a schedule going where I can do it at the same time every day. So if people are available, then they'll know where I'll be. All right, I'll see you in the future.